Shri Hooda ji,
Thank you, sir.
only for better 5 minutes.
Thank you for your time, sir. The budget statement, this budget statement is again a reflection of the perceptual change that the UPA government has been able to bring in favor of the Aam Aadmi. The general state of economy, of course, is strongest that we've ever had. From an average GDP growth rate of 5.5% during the NDA regime, we have now moved to above 9% growth rate, with a lot of growth coming from manufacturing and services sector, both experiencing double-digit growth. This has happened with fiscal prudence. The fiscal deficit, which ran as high as 6.2% during the NDA regime, has gone down in this year to about 3.3%. The investment rate, as measured by the gross domestic capital formation, has also sprung up to over 30%, well above 33% now, which augurs well for the future outlook and the future growth. A lot of our members, including members from the NDA, my dear friend Mr. Singh, who is not present in the house today, conceded this good economic performance. But Mr. Singh said that the economy is indeed performing well, but it is due to the hard work done by the NDA regime. सर ये बात मेरे समझ में नहीं आई. जब हम अच्छा करें तो वो इसीलिए कि एनडीए ने, और कुछ बुरे की बात आए तो वो हमारी गलती. एक कहावत है सर, गांव में कहावत आप भी जानते हैं कि चित भी मेरी, पट भी मेरी और अंटा मेरे घर का. तो ये बात मुझे जो दोहरी बात ये समझ में नहीं आई. In this overall good picture of economy, however, some of the economists are pointing towards some concerning facts, and some of the economists are saying that the economy is indeed overheating, with some classic overheating signs such as asset overpricing, perhaps a bubble in the real estate pricing, very strong credit growth that we are seeing, increasing current account deficit at an alarming pace, and of course the inflationary pressures, which has been the meat of the substance of much of the debate that we saw in the House. Well, that indeed, in my opinion, is the case. And whenever an economist looks at this situation, he can look at either demand side or supply side. And it is very easy to look at the demand side, as Honorable Member Ramdas from Pondicherry was just concluding, that by increasing the interest rate or the repo rate, by curbing the liquidity from the market and bringing down the demand, that's one way of looking at dealing with inflation, but that's just short term. So I must compliment our finance minister that he did not fall for that trap. And indeed, with that, he focused a lot on the long-term supply side measures. Supply side measures specifically in the areas of infrastructure, agriculture, and skill and human resource development. And I'm going to focus my speech on the agriculture and the skill or the human resource development, that is education, and I'll make a couple of suggestions in these areas. Indeed, the crisis of agriculture, the agrarian crisis and the rural distress, and the fact that we are not able to produce enough skilled human resource are interlinked problems. From the time of our independence, where 60% of our economy was dependent on agriculture, we have fell down to about 20% now. The proportion of cultivators indeed has just fallen from 83 to 72%. Therefore, this our average land size is going down at an alarming rate. जहाँ पे दादा के पास, पिता के पास 40 किले 50 किले जमीन होती थी स्पीकर साहब, आज वहाँ पे बेटे के पास कहीं पे 5 किले, कहीं पे 2 किले और कहीं पे बिल्कुल जमीन बहुत कम हो गई है सर. तो केवल एग्रीकल्चर पे फोकस करके और प्रोडक्टिव बढ़ा के हमें आंसर नहीं मिल पाएगा. किसान की समस्याओं के बारे में इस बजट का बहुत जिक्र हुआ है, मगर किसान की समस्याओं के साथ साथ किसान की बेटे की समस्याओं का भी जिक्र इस बजट में करने की आवश्यकता है. और किसान के बेटे के समस्याओं का हल तब हो पाएगा जब हम किसान के बेटे को अच्छी शिक्षा प्रदान करने की क्षमता दे पाएंगे और उसको जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग और सर्विसेज सेक्टर की तरफ बढ़ने में और 21वीं सदी के तर्ज पे अपने अच्छे रोजगार के साधन ढूंढने के लिए औजार दे पाएंगे. As far as education is concerned, I welcome the 34% hike in the overall allocation of education, but I think this falls short in my expectation. We should look at increasing the allocation in education to at least 6% of GDP, which is the norm in most of the developing countries. In countries like China, this figure goes up to 8 to 10%. We have some more welcome measures, such as merit cum means scholarship, in which 1 lakh scholarships will be awarded every year through a national exam from the 8th student. But in this, I have another suggestion. This scholarship should be focused on girl child and the rural children. Because there are two reasons. One, 50% of girls do not enroll for education. And a lot of girls drop out because our parents feel obliged to finance education for the boy child rather than the girl child. That's one. And secondly, there is a huge disparity between urban and rural education. So this scholarship scheme which has come and which will be based on a general exam should be focused on girl child and the rural child more than just the general exam. The second thing is teacher training. We have not increased any funding for the teacher training. आज शिक्षा के अंदर गुणवत्ता की बड़ी भारी कमी है. ग्रामीण स्कूलों के अंदर और सरकारी स्कूलों के अंदर जो शिक्षा की गुणवत्ता है वो प्राइवेट, निजी और अर्बन स्कूलों से काफी कम है. और इसको बढ़ाने के लिए केवल सर्व शिक्षा अभियान से नए स्कूलों के कमरे बनाने से काम नहीं चलेगा. हमें शिक्षकों की ट्रेनिंग पे और टीचर ट्रेनिंग पे भी कम से कम पूरे शिक्षा के बजट का 5% खर्चा शिक्षकों की ट्रेनिंग पे करने की आवश्यकता है. There is another big flaw that we need to curb. 50% of students who enroll in primary education drop out in the primary itself. Rest 40% drop out during the secondary. By the time they reach the college, only less than 10% of children actually reach the college. So to fill this, we need to have a scheme of community colleges which gives our children a second chance to go back and get the education. And this is where I think India is very different from any other country in the world, because most of the developing and developed economies do have a system of community colleges which allow the children a second chance to go and study. So that's another area that our budget doesn't focus on. In the higher education, there has been a 79% increase in contribution with help of the 1% education cess. I welcome it. But along with this, I also profess a public-private partnership model similar to the one that has been successful with NHI, so that we are able to get a lot of more funding and remove the fundings from the throttles of organizations such as AICTI and MCI. Vocational training is another critical area, and I am very disappointed in this area. For the vocational training mission, only 50 crores of rupees have been sanctioned separately, and 1396, only less than 1500 ITIs have been marked for upgradation. This is ridiculous. If we look at the total ITIs in our country today, there are 5,000 ITIs with 7,000 more vocational institute, total of 12,000. We compare it with China. China has 5 lakh ITIs. We have 2% of our educated people with skills, ITI skills. Germany has 65%. We are going to compete in this 21st century, and we need our children to have these skills. I think we need to substantially increase our funding for ITIs and vocational trainings. The last point in my education piece is on R&D and percentage of education spent on R&D. There is no mention whatsoever. The key to solving problem in the 21st century will be driven through research and innovation, which are our strengths as a nation. And if that's the case, we need to fund a lot more in terms of looking at funding research and development. I'll make few points, a few suggestions on agriculture. On agriculture, I appreciate and I acknowledge this, the fact that this sector has received considerable attention in this budget. And we thank the finance minister for doing so. But the overall allocation on agriculture is less than 2% of GDP. This should be increased. Sir, three more points, sir. So this should be increased to over 5% of GDP. Because I mean, this is such a crucial sector, so you also are very well aware of. A lot of points were covered by the previous speakers. I also acknowledge the groundwater recharge scheme, which is very innovative. But along with this, we also need a soil recharge or soil quality restoration scheme. Because groundwater is getting discharged, but at the same time, by use of nitrogenous fertilizer in states like Punjab and Haryana, which are feeding the nation, their soil quality is really deteriorating, with NPK ratio really going bad. And in future, we are looking at desertification of these states. So we should very urgently also look at, along with groundwater, soil quality restoration scheme. Another thing about agricultural research, I wholeheartedly support the point that was made by our honorable member from Haryana regarding having additional funds for Hisar, the Haryana Agriculture University in Hisar. Because, sir, this was promised by Finance Minister in last budget, and I was very surprised that this did not come up.
Thank you.
Regarding subsidies, sir, you'll be shocked to know that a recent study reveals that OECD nations subsidize their farmers by about $1 billion a day. which is about 44% of the total income of the farmers living in these rich nations on an annual basis. In India, this figure is 4%. And still, we in each subsequent budget, we talk about cutting our subsidies. So not only I pledge the government, we should increase the subsidy, including the fertilizer subsidy.
Thank you.
But I also demand increasing. I also demand increasing our fertilizer subsidy and also demand power subsidy, because power is an essential component of the overall mix of agricultural constituents. And in states like Haryana, where the power we have to import a lot, we are putting additional pressure on our farmer by importing very expensive power, and our farmer produces food grains which we are not allowed to charge any surplus price.
Thank you.